website right now and download my free course on alternate picking mastery. It contains 5 essential exercises that will take you to alternate picking mastery faster than you can imagine. And then I've included my method of how to lay out a practice plan in just 1 to 2 minutes that will absolutely boost your results like nothing you ever tried before. So go download it right now. It's free. Hey, how should you practice? If you're an advanced beginner, one of the questions here on YouTube, because I talk about focus and taking one thing and then obsessing about it, right? Bringing it all the way to mastery. Very few people do this. This is the secret, and I talk a lot about it in these videos. This is the secret to mastery. That very few of us, if any of us, out of 1,000 people, ever take one thing and then push it all the way up. I spent an entire year taking a very hard alternate picking, like 4 notes. There's way too many challenges in just playing 4 notes up and down with a double string shift and alternate picking, but I didn't know at the time. But I stayed with it for 12 months until I nailed it, obsessing about it, playing it in front of the TV, doing other things at times, but then returning to it and just, knocking my head on it until it was down, until I could do it without thinking too much about it. And then that is the secret. And I didn't know at the time, but that is the secret. And then there's a question that then says, but if I'm an advanced beginner, he says, and if I take one thing, I have 2 hours of practice time a day, and if I just practice one thing, I'm afraid that I'm really going to be not very good at other things, right? I spent 4 weeks just practicing 3 notes on 1 string or whatever it is that I'm focusing on, or 2 or 3 chords over and over again. Then will I ever learn to play the guitar in any meaningful way where I can play music? Well, first of all, you have to have 2 pictures in your mind. The first picture or image is a beginner plays songs, practices songs that involves more than one thing. It's the opposite of focus, basically. You practice chords, right? You practice strumming, you practice rhythm as you do it. Da, da, ga, ga, da, da, da. As you practice going back and forth, and those are very complex, very delicate movements that you're doing with your left hand and your right hand, hitting the strings, muting, all of these things. But that's what you do in the beginning because you want to learn something that sounds like music. But as you progress, you do 2 things. You move from playing other people's stuff to being able to create your own stuff. You understand how chords are put together, so you can put chords together. You understand how you play solos and improvise, so you can improvise and create something original. That's the one thing. So you move from being a monkey see, monkey do beginner to actually going into the craft of making and producing and creating music, so you take it to another level. And you go from only learning licks, which is what we beginners do when we go into learning soloing, to learning sequences and learning to do what we did in not the previous video, but the one before that. You need to watch all these videos on this channel. And if you haven't done so, subscribe, go to Instagram, sign up for our free videos there as well. Sign up on our website, guitarmastery.net, and download free jam tracks. We've got a lot of them, and they're all live and really cool. But in order for you to know what to practice at what level, you must look at, and you say you're an advanced beginner, right? So it means you've been playing guitar for a while, but you still need to have a very broad focus and learn some skills. So you can say, okay, where do I want to go to? I want to be able to play songs. Good. Keep practicing songs. But then you might want to split your practice time up into saying, use the 1 hour on playing songs or learning stuff that sounds musical, and the other on your narrow, very obsessive focus. But then the next thing I would say is that 2 hours is not all of your practice time. You can practice and visualize scale patterns and chord structures in your mind. You can have 2 chord structures or 3 or 4 that you go through. You can print them out on a piece of paper or have them in your phone as an image. See if you can remember these chord structures and where to put your fingers. And then if you can't, you look at the picture, that's how, and then you visualize it. Try again 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later. You can, read theory on the bus when you can't play or practice guitar. You can practice a lot more. In your mind, you can practice rhythm with your hands without having your instrument. You can do that while you talk to people. There's so many things you can do, and you need to do them if you want to progress, because 2 hours a day, while it's a pretty good amount of practice time, is not enough at all to go to any meaningful level of mastery. But that's all I have. No, you can practice, as I said, as you drive in your car, visualize scale shapes, practice rhythms with your mouth as you tap the bottom of your car, whatever, right? You find a way to develop mastery with whatever else you're doing. So those 2 hours can be spent on the focused practice, right? Take the practice time to the TV or to front of YouTube. I don't watch TV. I watch YouTube and Netflix and all kinds of other stuff, right? But, screen time, and then practice repetitive, loopable patterns, chord structures, whatever it is, scales, right? Over and over and over and over and over and over again until you're crazy, right? That's the way to get to mastery, and anyone can do it. And the focus thing, you just have to be obsessed, first of all, about practicing guitar and learning all the time in every single little second you have during the day, because that makes it so important for the brain to become good at it. If you narrow it down to practicing 1 or 2 hours, you go to work for 8 hours, you sleep for 8 hours, you spend 6 hours with your family, then how important is it to the brain to learn, this at the level of mastery? It's not. Work is important, family, sleep is important, but this is the lowest priority. So why should the brain spend a lot of resources really ingraining those patterns that you try to build into your brain? It's not going to happen on any really deep level. But if you can't stop thinking about practicing guitar and you visualize all kinds of stuff, practice rhythms all day, then you raise it to the highest level because you're doing it in every single break. That's the number one priority, and you learn like crazy. So you need to use all these principles and be focused on them, and then see, what do I have to practice when I have that time for myself alone in a room? Metronome practice, getting chords in that you can practice in your mind, learning scale shapes that you can bring with you and visualize, learning licks that you can, play and practice to the point where you can take them to the TV and play them in a loop without thinking too much about it. You just need to be very creative with what you do. And then, of course, the more of a beginner you are, the more broad a focus you have, the more you practice a lot of things, right, over and over again in your practice regimen. The more you become a guy who can play rhythm guitar in a band, the more you want to narrow your focus and really, use 75% to 80% of your time on just one narrow thing. But that's not that difficult, right? Because if you're using 1 to 2 hours or maybe 30 minutes with the metronome alone in a room, and you spend that time with what it is that you need to spend it on, and not practice stuff you could practice in front of the TV with an unplugged guitar while spending time with the family, watching something funny or educational, right? You don't want to practice that in a room alone. You want to reserve that for that time. If you do that, then, if you have 3 hours of talking to friends and watching TV of repetitive practice, and you have 30, it's not too hard to make that division between the 75% of total focus and the 25% of practicing all kinds of stuff. Hope you get my idea here. And that's what you need to do. So think broader than just the time you have available in a room by yourself, and really see how much time can you get in. And then use these principles on a general level, right? You can never do it right because there's no really right. There's just a general principle of what will give you the best results. And one of these general principles are focus on one thing, using almost all of your time for an extended period of time, a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, on just one thing, for the brain to burn a hole through it and really get a result, instead of this constant, never-ending dabbling that 99% of all people do, because they're so focused on mediocrity, because they don't know any better. That's just what we expect of ourselves, right? We just expect ourselves to be incrementally a little better at everything. Go back, right? I wish I could swear in this video, but that's not, a lot of people that I want to reach will just go, right? But it really deserves some swearing here, because you really need to drop out of that and then go for absolute outstanding excellence in mastering your skill set, because anyone can. You just need to have that focus so you won't stop doing stuff when you're good at it. Once you're good at it, that's when practicing starts, and you want to push all the way to the top with something very narrow, because once you're up there with just 3 notes or 3 chords or whatever, everything becomes easier.
Subscribe for more free videos. Do it. Do it now. Do it.